with the whole we over me part, is that we are living our lives to help others. But you can't help we if me is not okay.
Mm.
So you have to be in some good faith. You have to be in some good frame of mind in order to accomplish your goals as well as help somebody else accomplish theirs.
Hello and welcome to season 2 of the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to athletes and coaches about their journeys and what advice they would have for a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. You can call me JT. If you want to hear my story and why I do this podcast, that will be in season 1, episode 1. But enough about me. Let's meet our guest. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. The man with me today, he is a husband, he's a father, he's a former collegiate basketball player, 4-time All-American, 2-time Player of the Year. Currently, he's a head varsity basketball coach. He also is a teacher of the year nominee. And above all that, he's a man of God, a man of faith. And I'm so excited to hear what he's going to share with us today. So without further ado, Omar McMillan. Omar.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me today. It's a real pleasure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, let's get into it. You're a head coach. You were All-American Player of the Year. But take us back. Where did it begin for you? How did you fall in love with playing sports?
I think the three areas that I would probably say that encouraged me to play basketball, well, I say four. Encouraged me to play basketball was one, my parents. My stepdad was a sports junkie. I mean, I think he probably could watch about 3 or 4 days straight of ESPN and not get tired. Um, so he was kind of always pushing to get out and play different sports and try new things. My mom was the faith driver. I mean, she was the one that that's pushing me to make sure I say a prayer before every game, read a Bible scripture, things of that nature. So she was that. One of the other things was the fact that I grew up in what they call the projects. So sports was kind of a way of escaping poverty to a certain extent,
Mm.
being able to escape it for that moment or escape it forever. So that was one of the aspects. And then you have the arguments about Jordan and Bill Russell and Kareem and LeBron and Kobe being the GOAT. But my GOAT is Magic Johnson. I mean,
Mm.
he's one of my all-time favorites. He's one that made me kind of love and appreciate the game and his style of play. And then the most important thing I think that kept me consistent and disciplined and committed to sports is my growing faith in God. So those are
Mm.
four aspects that kind of got me to love this game and be a part of this game.
Yeah. So you start out sports kind of being that escape for you and that moment of peace. And at what point do you kind of get serious? What does going into high school look like for you?
I was fortunate enough to play at Milwaukee Washington High School under a head coach who, number one, is a Wisconsin Hall of Famer. One of the only coaches, one of the few coaches that was to win several state tournament titles at two different schools. We still talk to this day, if he'll ever be my mentor. But coming into high school, a little young and dumb guy that got somewhat recruited to come to that school. And I skipped over three neighborhood schools to go to this school, which is probably about a 30, 35-minute city bus ride to school every morning.
Mm,
Coming in there, and I played with the likes of, I'm coming into a school that had the number one point guard in the nation, Calvin Rayford, that went to Kansas Jayhawks. We had the number three small forward in the nation, Silas Mills, who played for Utah State, and under Rick Majerus. We just had at that particular time as a freshman, I want to say that we had about maybe seven Division I athletes on the varsity team. So I kind
mm,
of had to earn my keep to make that varsity team and be there. So it was kind of a big privilege and a big deal to play at this school. Um, and I mean, during my era, shoot, you seeing the likes of Devin Harris and Rodney Buford, a lot of guys, Mike Wilkes, Latrell Sprewell. Latrell Sprewell went to my high school as well too. So these are
wow.
guys that big names in that time that either right before me or right after me, NBA legends, so to speak, to be able to play. So it was a big deal to
Mm,
play in our city conference at that time.
yeah. Were you just playing basketball?
I grew up loving football at the beginning a lot more. And a bunch of us went and participated in what they call a POW league. It was ran by police officers and as the coaches and stuff, their way of giving back to the community. But I thought I was going to be the next Jerry Rice, next Joe Montana, whatever whatever big name was back then. I thought I was going to be that next person. But reality kind of kicked in that football at that particular time was expensive,
Mm,
and my family couldn't afford that, so I kind of washed that away. But I rekindled with that. I want to say my sophomore year in high school, and I think I was one practice and done after that. So I just focused on basketball.
mm, okay. So you play basketball at this school, a bunch of talent there. What take us through sort of that journey playing in high school, what that was like for you, how do you guys do, and then how you begin to think about college and playing at the next level.
My high school experience was a big growth period. Um, like I said, I was coming into Washington High School as somewhat a big deal in my area. But then I think it was a huge prep to what college would be like because, I was a big fish in my area, and then I get to this high school, and I'm like, I ain't even in the top 10.
Mm,
Uh, so I got humbled right away my freshman year. We got freshman tryouts. Two of my really, really, really good friends that came in with me that got recruited got moved up to the JV team, and I was still on the freshman team, and that kind of humbled me a little bit. But it turned up my work ethic. Uh, I was a person that, you know, I just imagine if I had some of the training that they have today. But I was a person that was running hills and running stairs at 6 o'clock in the morning, jogging around and getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning and bringing the neighbors coffee and newspapers so that they wouldn't call the police on me as I was at the playground shooting baskets and stuff like that. Going into the end of I mean, my freshman year, I might have been 5'8", 5'9", and had no jumping ability. Quick, fast, can shoot, get to the basket. But then all of a sudden, I came back my sophomore year, windmilling and 360 and doing all that, and that immediately got me a jump into some of that JV varsity experience. Um, and then I had the opportunity to start um, coming into my junior year, but it was kind of threatened by a little bit because um, we had the number two guard in the state
mm,
transferring to our school, and I'm thinking like, wait a minute, he's playing my position. So this is kind of on the line, and me and him still joke about this to the day. So I had this kind of like, ooh, I got to go at him every time I see him. Go at him. So summer came around, and we end up being on the same summer league team and became pretty good friends. And he ended up starting, and I end up starting right alongside of him. And that year we end up winning the state championship with me making the winning two free throws to seal the
Mm,
deal. But again, it was if I look back at it, it really prepared me for college because it's the same thing that a lot of guys don't necessarily understand that when you go and play at that next level, they picked a bunch of guys that was good in their area. So you might not
mhm,
necessarily go into that atmosphere and be the man, so to speak. So when I went to college, I kind of had that understanding already that I got to continuously fight to be one of the best or be one of the players that the coach looks upon and stuff like that. And so that's sort of the same thing that I try to teach to these young players and my players that's coming up, that it doesn't stop. If you plan on going to that next level, you might be a starter at high school and you might be sitting the bench when you get to college. How are
mm.
you going to handle that?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of Inky Johnson. I'm a big fan of his, but he he always says when talent meets talent, talent is not enough. And then
Mhm.
it's about your character, your work ethic, um, and just a cool kind of what you shared. Like you get there, you're used to being the man, but you get somewhere where everyone is good, and then how do you separate yourself? You're waking up early, you're training, and that's a word really for anyone. Like eventually you're going to come up against someone just as talented as you. So what are you doing now to set yourself apart? That man, that's good.
Well, let me also add this disclaimer because I think where it gets confused a little bit is that there is a cliche way of saying get into the gym, work on your game, work on your craft, commit to this, and you're going to beat that next person. Or the old cliche of there's somebody out there better than you, and when they meet, they're going to beat you. So kind of get that motivation. But it's also things that I think sometimes that coaches and people that been through it oftentimes forget, and that's the resources. I mean,
Mm,
you and a kid can be training every single day together, um, going after it, putting in the same amount of work, but the person with the more resources is going to win out. The person with the stronger support system is going to win out. The person that has the strongest faith, whatever your belief in higher power is going to win out. So again, you can have a kid coming into your workouts every single day in the summer, never missing, early, staying late. But at the same time, fair or unfair, you can have somebody that's doing the same or even little, but if they got more resources and more support, they're going to be able to go a little bit further and get there a little bit faster. Now, whether they last or not, it might be different, but at the end of the day, resources and support systems is what have you. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if I didn't have my best friend Boo Hayes with me in college, man, it probably would have been times that I probably would have maybe gave it up or whatever. Okay, but we pushed each other. We were both players of the year, both All Americans, and we held each other accountable. We prayed together. We fought. We did all those things to make each other better. So you got to have those support systems and that resources as well too.
man. That's good, and that's cool. You kind of having that experience and that perspective, and now being a coach, you can sort of look out for that guy maybe that needs a little more support or whatever it may be. And like
Mhm.
you said, who do you surround yourself with? I mean, you had a best friend that you guys push each other, and that's the kind of friend you need. So, and now you don't, it's not about, oh, I'm trying to be popular and have 100 friends. It's like, who are those people that are really going to stick with me, hold me accountable, push me to be my best? That's who I want to be around.
Mhm.
Um, so how do you, I mean, that's awesome. Free throws to win the state championship. You never forget that. What does trying to find college look like for you? Are you
Um,
expect? I mean, are you being recruited? Are you? How are you deciding where you want to go?
for me personally, at that time, it was an anxiety filled experience.
Mm,
Um, because again, outside of my mom, because I had lost my stepdad at that time, my junior year, probably like maybe 3 or 4 days after I did make those free throws to win the state title. So I had
mm,
to be a man kind of quick. Um, and so my mom didn't really wasn't really in tune with the whole college recruiting thing and filling out FAFSAs and all that different things. And then, I had to rely on uh, my circle, and a lot of them didn't go play at the next level. I had a few friends that went and played Division 1 basketball, Division 2 basketball, but the unfortunate thing, I wasn't really educated at the time to know what it means to go to that next level. So I probably had about a handful of Division 1 schools. Coming from Wisconsin, we didn't really have a bunch of Division 2 schools. Um, we had a couple of Division 3 schools, and I had some JUCOs. So my recruiting ranged from California to the East Coast to down south, somewhere in the Midwest. But again, growing up as a person in poverty, um, we didn't travel much. What I mean? 'Cause so I was kind of what they would call a square when it came to uh, things outside of, Wisconsin, so to
mm,
speak. And, I mean, I was born in California, so I knew something about that. My family members were, a lot of my family was in Indiana, so I knew about that. But as far as traveling so far out the area, I didn't have that luxury. So again, when a school in Arizona is calling to recruit me, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, man, Arizona.
mm,
Okay. So, when, schools like UC Santa Barbara and Tennessee Chattanooga and all I had no experience with them. So I got recruited also by UW Milwaukee. And I was about to pull that trigger and say, hey, I'm going there. But I was conflicted with two things. One, I don't necessarily know that uh, I really wanted to go to UW Milwaukee. Um, I had one of my former high school coaches there. If I was going, I was going for him.
mm,
I was also going for my mom because at that time, like I said, I had lost my stepfather the year before, and I didn't want to leave my mom. So that was another reason. But as far as UW Milwaukee and liking it and going on a visit and saying this is the place I want to be, I didn't think I had that. So I think that was another reason why I had the hesitation before saying, yeah, I want to go there. But God must have knew. because, I probably about a week before I was thinking about making my decision, the coaches at UW Milwaukee said, we're going to go a different route. We had a losing season. So we're going to try to get some more experienced JUCO players. And so I was lost at that point. Like, where do I go? And so my best friend that I spoke about, I ran into him at an ACT testing, and he said, "Hey man, let's go to Bethany and Mankato." I said, "Where's Mankato?" Says in Minnesota. I'm like, where's Minnesota? You know what I mean? It's like I
Mm-hmm.
had no clue. So then he's like, man, this is one of his words. He's like, man, you know where Prince is from. And I just burst out laughing. I said, oh yeah, I do know Prince. So that, that's kind of the knowledge that I have and had at that time. And times have changed, but at the same time, you still have players like me that they don't know outside of their element. But then also you got so much access to recruiting and all those different things now and different places. So that's kind of where I was. And finally, my mom is the one that kind of sealed the deal. She's like, you going to school or what? Got all these people calling, tying up my line. Are you going to school or what? I said, Mom, I don't want to leave you. She said, boy, I'm grown. I can take care of myself. I don't need you around here. What you gonna do to take care of me?
Mm.
So that kind of sealed the deal for me to go on to school, and I had a great experience in Mankato. I grew up a lot there too, as far as being a man and trying to understand how to be independent. I was fortunate enough to have some fantastic coaches all the way to middle school. Coach Vic, my high school coach, Coach Gordon, and then Coach Westfall, who was phenomenal coaches too. They all helped me grow up. And I was able to go to Saint Scholastica after that. Coach Daka was a phenomenal coach as well too. So I grew up a lot. So it's going to school and getting recruited was nerve wracking. So
Mm. Man, I appreciate you sharing that because it just shows some people think that, oh, it's all about your talent, your work ethic, and those are the only pieces to success, and they don't account for your environment and the way you grew up. And like you said, you had all the talent in the world, you had the work ethic, you had a state championship, but you just didn't know. Like, who knows? I mean, maybe you would have gone D1 and but in the NBA had you kind of had that knowledge. So I think that's a good word for people who don't recognize that there are challenges that people may have in their environment, that even if you are talented, smart, you have character, all of it, it's not just automatic to get where you want to go. So playing Bethany and then Saint Scholastica.
yeah, and Duluth.
Yep. Tell us, you know, take us through it, kind of your career and some of the highlights and whatever you want to share about that.
You know what? Playing at Bethany was phenomenal. A lot of great memories there. It was also another humbling experience. I probably think that my best friend and I were probably the most highly recruited uh, duel, so to speak, to come to Bethany that year. But at the same time, you had to earn your keep. There was no slouch players that there, and me walking in there with a sense of arrogance. I'll be honest with you. At that point, I think I was arrogant because I felt like I had to be. And what I mean by that is that, for the most part, I was a pretty shy, humbling kid, uh, all the way up to high school, and I was still was a little class clown type of guy. But at the same time, there I felt like walking on this campus, it was me against the world type of attitude. Because again, like I told you, I had that experience from high school that I just couldn't. I just couldn't go in there and just be another guy. I had to be the guy. And so, my best friend and I, we set our eyes on being players of the year, all conference, and this and that and that. And the transition to college was not easy. But at the same time, as you start getting used to it and some of the schemes of things and having a good coach helped, um, I was able to, I think, excel. But after those 2 years at Bethany, I hadn't reached my full potential yet. I was pretty athletic, could jump out the gym, probably close to touching the top of the backboard, can get to the basket, all those different things. But yet, it was so much more of my game that had to come out. So, um, humbly, I got to St. Scholastica and end up having to redshirt my first year due to not passing a science class that didn't transfer over. And that's a long story behind itself because uh, to my belief, I think I was fantastic at science. But one of the things that happened is, got a professor we didn't see eye to eye, and as a result, she won out. So I end up not passing that class, so to speak. So anyway, end up redshirting, and that was super humbling.
Mm.
But it was a gift in disguise because it allowed me to use that whole year to get better. I was being able to see the game and see it in slow motion, and I was working out and in the weight room and traveling with the team and seeing what uh, it looked like from the bench. And I came out that junior year on a mission, and we were able to. I think the team the year before had won like maybe 7 games, and then in the next 3 years we were a 20 plus win team, and I was able to get All American and Player of the Year, and take the one game away from the national tournament, and it was a different experience. uh, we are recording because I was gonna say, well, I can say I didn't have the best of time at the College of St. Scholastica as far as it being so cold up there. Oh my goodness, it's cold up there. Somewhere in my blood, I think I'm a tropical person, so it was so cold and miserable at times up there. But I enjoyed the people that I met. Coach Daka, phenomenal guy. So playing under him those 2 years and the people that I was able to meet, and you know, it was great. So I mean, the college experience made me a better person, grew me up, and made me look at the game of basketball a little differently from how I saw it as this little project kid.
Yeah. There's two things that you said that I think are such a good word. Like, one, you get there, it doesn't matter what you did in high school. You have to get there and you have to earn your way into the rotation. And then you go from Bethany to St. Scholastica, and same thing. It doesn't matter what you did before. And I
Mm,
think that's true in life. You got to show up every day.
every
You
day.
gotta you gotta earn it every day. I mean, you're a teacher now. You could teach great for 3 months and then not show up one day, and that's not gonna fly, right?
Yeah.
Um, you gotta you gotta do it every day, and then I just think, like you said about being redshirted, I think when things don't go our way and we're faced with some trial. It's all about what you make out of that. You made the most out of that as far as, like you said, I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to see the game. I'm going to build my experience with the team. And you didn't just pout or give up and say, oh, I'm redshirted. I should be the, like, it's easy to be entitled, but like you said, having a humbling experience and then making the most of it, I think that's such a good word for anyone that will hear this.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you come to the end of college, how are you deciding kind of what you want to do in life, and how do you end up becoming a coach? If you're finding this podcast valuable, take a second to leave a review, to follow on whatever platform you're listening on. This will help the podcast reach more people. Check us out at 1020words.com/DYA, TEN20words.com/DYA. You can check out our merchandise. We have sweatpants, hoodies, t-shirts, shorts. Use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off. There's also a button where you can support on Patreon, follow on Instagram at Dear Young Athlete, or inquire about being on the podcast or bringing Dear Young Athlete to your team or group. We hope to see you there. Now, let's get back to the episode.
I think by accident is the wrong word. By faith, I guess. Because after that, I was invited to a semi-pro camp in Chicago, which was a phenomenal experience. And I think, as we talk about those paths, if I would have, should have, could have, I could have been here. That was another one of those situations that if the right resources are lined up, I would probably have played in the NBA Summer Pro League. But so I went that route. But also I had several friends that year after year kept chasing this dream and going to these different NBA camps and not getting called back. I'm like, I don't want to keep doing that because I don't have the time or the money to keep going to these camps. And they were, using their savings and all this. I'm like, I don't want to do all that. So reality kind of kicked in that, I wasn't going to be the next Kobe Bryant, so to speak. So I end up also at that time, I was engaged and end up getting married. So that was another, factor that kind of took me down a different path in life, so to speak. But the coaching part, I had been coaching prior to that. I've been coaching since I've been 17 or 18 years old. But I end up, I'm going to say this by accident, but I end up coaching college women's basketball. I don't think I even had a choice, so to speak. But during my college playing time, we played against the Concordia St. Paul. And on the women, and so it used to be a double hitter all the time. The women would play first and the men would play second. And one of the coaches for Concordia St. Paul had the same last name as me, but kind of spelt different. So she comes down the bleachers and says, where's my cousin at? Where's my cousin? So everybody's looking like, who is she talking about? Because she's loud and she got that kind of Southern accent. So I, out of all people, by faith, say, who's your cousin? And she says, McMillan. There's a McMillan there? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. So we sat there and talked for about 20 minutes before I even, our game started. So just trying to figure out backgrounds and stuff like that. And, we had, she's from South Carolina and, I got some family members down there, but ironically, yeah, our name is still spelled differently. So anyway, after school was done, she invited me down to her office and I didn't know she was interviewing me. I
Mm,
thought she didn't want to kind of talk because I was coming down there. They would have open gym down at Minneapolis Community Technical College, and I would go down there on lunch. So she had invited me to her office one time and said, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do. I think we'll have a good team." I'm like, "Why she keeps saying I think we will have a good team? What is she talking about?" So, at the end of the meeting, she gives me this packet and tells me to study it. And so I go home and my wife was like, well, how's your day? I said, I think I'm a coach now. I think I'm assistant coach for college. I'm not sure. So I end up doing that for about, I want to say maybe 5 years. We had an 80% winning record. We won the first national championship in school history on the women's side out in Corning, New York, before left that. So it was a great experience. And the
mm,
ironic thing is I'm coaching some of my former players' sons and stuff now, or their daughters and AAU. And so, um, that ended up happening. Then, I got some parents in Richfield that came to my room one day because I was done with coaching. I said I wasn't going to coach no more after that. And it wasn't because it was bad, but, I had a daughter, a younger daughter at the time. And, I wanted to spend that time with her, watching her growing up because that coaching, I kind of missed her first walk, missed
mm.
her first word. So I wanted to be more a part of that, so to speak. But somehow some parents ruffled me up and got me into Richfield as an assistant coach. Did that, had a great predecessor, ended up taking over the program. And I think this is my 12th year with that. During that time, we had some good seasons where maybe a game away or a bucket away from getting to the state title. I mean, state championship. I mean, getting to state rather. And then we had some valleys. I mean, we had
Mm.
some rough years where it was like, boy, why am I doing this? And so, in recent years, we have went to state uh, 2 years in a row, game away from being in the state championship against Minnehaha. Uh, and, we're still trying to contend and get these boys to the next level and help them become men because it's bigger than basketball. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If you can even expound on that, what does being a coach and being a teacher mean to you?
both of them are my passions. I feel as though both of these professions, um, I was destined to be involved in by the grace of God because I had no intentions of being a teacher, none, zip. I went to school, I was going to be a pediatrician,
Mm,
something to do with kids. I was going to be a pediatrician. And I used to joke all the time, teachers don't make no money. Well, I'm either being a pediatrician, I'm going to the NBA. And things kept pushing me towards the education form. Uh, and people kept telling me, man, you're good at this. And so the coaching part of it was kind of the same thing. I want to, this is my way of giving back. This is my way of giving back and helping create a brighter future. One of the goals when I left the projects to go to college, I said, I don't want to come back here. I don't want to be in a position where I'm in the projects again.
mm,
And so I kind of bring that to the classroom. I want these kids to be in a better position than I was growing up. Now I know it's one year. of them being in my class, or maybe be 4 years of them being on my team. But I try to maximize as much as I can give them as a teacher and as a coach so they can fulfill their dreams.
Mm,
Um, be that source, be that resource that, I talk about. So that, one of the things that, it's not necessarily always about the wins and losses. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very, very competitive person. I don't let you win in Connect Four. I don't let you win in hopscotch. I don't let you win. I don't care what age you not. No, I'm not letting you win nothing. Right? You got to beat me. And then if you beat me, I'm gonna sit there and learn how to not let you beat me the next time. But at the end of the day, what I judge my coaching on is how many players return. My teaching on how many students come back. How many siblings do I have from previous kids that I had where the family has faith in what I'm kind of bringing to the table? These kids hear stories. My players hear stories. I don't talk too much about basketball with my players. I don't talk about what I did back in the day. I'm not a huge fan of that back in the day. No, I don't do all that talking. I mean, because they can Google that now. You can look it up if you want to find out about me. And I have had some players Google me. Oh, coach, you used to do that? Like, yeah, I guess they still got that up there. I thought they would. I thought that was prehistoric before computers and stuff like that. So just having these passions in both of these areas and bringing resources and to the table for these kids and making sure they have what they have, and telling them the truth about things. And I think
mm,
that's the hardest thing as a teacher and coach these days, is that even at the younger age, these kids, um, you may come into the classroom having an understanding that they know everything, that they might be bigger than the teacher or they're bigger than the coach. And you just got to tell them that let them know that you are a support system. And wherever they want to go, you want to help them get there. But you also want to be real. You might not be a Division 1 athlete. I mean, and there's some roads that you got to take. So yeah, this is my passion. I
yeah.
love doing it. I want to get better at it. I'm gonna retire doing it. I mean,
Mm,
if that, I don't even know if retirement is in my vocabulary, but at some point this gonna come to an end. Let's put it like that.
yeah. Yeah. So you touched on kind of that faith being your guide through everything that you've been through, starting back to, I think you said it was your mom, making sure you pray, you get the scripture. So I'm wondering if you can tell us just some about your faith journey, kind of growing up, kind of some pivotal moments, and what what it means to you now.
Uh, well, I think this quick story is kind of sum it up. Again, I walked in. My mom was the type that if you walked in the house at just about any time, there was a Bible on the kitchen table, or the dining room table, where she had just either left or was there reading. So it was kind of like almost instilled with me because my mom was a strong, strong black woman who her faith was deep. Her faith was deep, and she wasn't the type that went around and was preachy. She wasn't the type that you had. She was an example of who she was. She got people to believe based on how she carried herself, how she spoke, and different things like that. So um, I remember, like I said earlier, that this bus ride to school was about 35 minutes on the city bus, and we had practice. I want to say it was probably like, let's say 5 o'clock as an example. So it might have been maybe 4 o'clock, right? And my mom said, "Hey, before you leave, I want you to do two things." I'm like, "What?" She said, "I need you to wash these dishes, and I need you to read this Job's, the scripture in Job's." And I'm like, "Man, I ain't got time." I'm thinking to myself, "I ain't got time for that." Man, like, what? I got to be at practice. If I'm late for practice, then I'm gonna get in trouble. So I watch these dishes in lightning type speed, right? So at this particular time, it's probably maybe 4:15, 4:20. I'm like, I do not have time to read this Job's. Okay. So I fake read. I fake read. And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah, good scripture." And she grabbed my arm on the way going out the door, gave me a hug and said, "Listen, let me explain something to you. Some people need practice, but all people need God."
Mm.
And I kind of took that, and I didn't think as a kid, I'm like, "Yeah, all right, but yeah, I got to get to practice, so I'm running." So fast forwarding to this might have been, I can't even remember. This might have been my 6th year as the head coach at Richfield. And I get this phone call that my mom is passing away in the hospital. And I'm like going like, what? Ain't nobody told me. She was even in the hospital because my mom lived in Milwaukee, and I was up here. So I go down to visit her in the hospital, and she's at the point where she's not very coherent. Matter of fact, she called me by my deceased brother's name when I walked into the hospital. And, I started holding her hand and talking to her. And on the side of her bed is her Bible open, of course. And what is it open to? Job's.
Mm.
So it was a time to catch up on some reading. And so when I read this, and when I'm talking about read, when I read a verse, I don't just read. I try to, depending on uh, when I'm reading, I try to research it a little bit, try to know the background of it and things like that. So I read the whole book of Job's, and I spoke at her funeral about the book of Job's
Mm.
and how it impacted me. And from that point, uh, I made a promise to not start my day off without a daily devotion. I do not get out of bed until I do read a daily devotion. And it's two guys who are both coaches that we, first thing in the morning, we share our daily devotions with one another. And one of the guys, we've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years now, never missing a day of sharing our daily devotions. So, again, I think I kind of walked that same path, not necessarily because my mom ended up being an evangelist, but I kind of somewhat walked that same path. I'm not very preachy. I don't. Uh, I try to show people based on who I am, how strong the relationship I have with God uh, through that point. So I try to. Um, I try to be the best person I can be, under His light, so to speak.
Mm.
So that's kind of how my faith is kind of driven.
Yeah. I love that idea. Like it's not about being preachy or trying to, I'll say like it's not about trying to get people to convert to my religion or something, but it's about inviting people into a relationship with God that actually can change who you are and and can actually make a difference in your life. Um, I love what you said about your mom. It was the way she carried herself that spoke volumes about what she believed, and how now that's your hope in your life. I hope that's true in my life. the way you treat people, the way you carry yourself, the way you're a leader, a mentor, a coach, a teacher. Hopefully, that would reflect a belief in this God, in the God of the Bible. So, man, I love that. I want to sort of, as we approach the close, we always talk about there's so many life lessons in sports. Um, but if you could pick one lesson in sports that you've seen impact your life, what would that be?
Um, I think it would be a combination of believing in a higher power, which ultimately causes you to believe in yourself. Um, because again, we have this mantra around Richfield that we started probably about maybe 8 years ago that talks about we over me.
Hmm.
And, that I'm reading so many verses about um, loving others like God loves you. And, with the whole we over me part is that we are living our lives to help others. But you can't help we if me is not okay.
Hmm.
So you have to be in some good faith. You have to be in some good frame of mind in order to accomplish your goals as well as help somebody else accomplish theirs. So being faith driven, um, God is consistent. He's consistent. Whether we are or not, He's consistent. So being that, believing in that higher power, that's something that's always going to be there, even when we don't want to believe on certain days. I mean, because we're human, it's going to be there. So the consistency of that might help those that have these dreams and aspirations to be certain area in life, the consistency of your faith and helping you be a stronger person to help other people is probably the biggest thing that I would pass on to the next person.
Hmm. Yeah, in your sport, you learn, you show up every day for your teammates, whether you want to or not, right? And then you realize, someday you got some kids, you got a job, you got a family, you got to show up every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that we over me, but you still gotta take care of you, like you said.
Yep.
I think of Jesus saying, "Love your neighbor as yourself." If you
Mm-hmm.
don't love yourself, how are you gonna love your neighbor?
Yep.
So that's a good word. As we close, you're on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. So, as we do with all our guests, we need you to complete the statement, Dear Young Athlete. What would you say to your players, to a younger Omar?
Uh, Dear young athletes, invest in yourselves from a spiritual standpoint, from a mental standpoint, for a physical standpoint. Invest in yourself. When we talk about investment, we're talking about taking a risk. Some
Hmm.
risks are going to be high, some risks are going to be low. But at the end of the day, you have to always kind of think about what the return will be. So investing in yourself, the more that you invest and the more people that you can get to invest in you, the bigger your return will be.
Hmm. Man, it's a good word. Like you said, finding people to invest in you too. If you run a business, you're going out trying to find investors. But in life, what would it look like for you to go out and see somebody that you want to be like and say, hey, I want you to mentor me. Hey, I want you to train me. Find people that will invest in you and make the most of it. Coach, it's been good. I appreciate you. Do you have any final word for us?
I think the biggest thing, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, being able to get in touch with coaches and that are responsible. I'm going to use that word, responsible, for impacting and changing the lives of the people who they are coaching, and being able to speak their beliefs and being able to also honor them with this podcast is a phenomenal thing. The more that we could spread this word about who we are and what we believe in and our faith, the bigger this can possibly be. You know, so again, uh, two things again, lead with the we over me. And also we win, we don't lose. We win and we learn. We win and we learn. You learn from your losses, you learn from your experiences, and you share those with other people so that they can be just as successful.
Amen. I think that's a perfect word to end on. So thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Remember to follow on your platform and leave us a review. Check out our website linked in the description, 1020words.com/DYA. Use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off the merchandise. We'll see you in the next episode.